3, 2, 1. We are live.
And welcome, everyone, to episode 8 of the podcast, How Do You Know That? With Robert Hollis. We're so glad to have you with us today. And before we get this going, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like and share buttons, as well as the subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you are listening to us elsewhere in the podcast universe, also please like and share this with friends and help us spread the word. Also, if you'd like to join our exclusive community, the Inner Circle, you can join us by going to roberthollis.com/join to register. There will be lots of great exclusive content, and you'll be able to participate in our special breakthrough sessions to help you move to the next level. Today is episode 8 of How Do You Know That? And our topic is how to deal with hardship. Now, allow me to introduce our host of today's show. He is an entrepreneurial evangelist, renowned for his incredible achievements. He is also known for inspiring countless of individuals around the globe with his unwavering determination and spirit. And he has also helped 67 people as of this date become millionaires. Known as a mentor, GPS to success, and a dear friend, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Hollis.
It's always neat to see Craig's eyebrows go up when you know he was getting there. Yeah, Craig, thank you so much. The hostess with the mostest, and of course, my son and the other visionary behind the scenes. He's clicking everything together while keeping his microphone muted for a second while Rue and Milo are like beating each other up. So, so again, Craig, thank you so much for the nice statement, and hello everyone that's watching this live or recorded. We really appreciate you tuning in on our podcast. And Craig, did you say what the title was?
Yes, I did.
So I just spaced it out. All right. So
okay.
Say what the title is.
How to deal with hardship.
Oh, that's why I forgot. My shoulder's killing me. Now I'm thinking. No, I thought that would be funny. It's like so how to deal with hardship. One of the things that I think before we get started on this subject is I believe this is human nature. Maybe you guys will know of some studies like this, but when we are going through difficult times, this is when the powers to be, which are our dinos, telling us you need to exclude yourself from everything. Do not ask for help. And just build this cocoon that got you to exactly where you are. Use that cocoon to get us out of hardship. I don't know what that is. I just know that I do it. And so when things are not going good, of course, we're beating ourselves up. But I think we sort of look like at ourselves a little bit of going, it's a little bit of humiliation and embarrassment to even get us in this situation. So if you already are having a difficulty time in believing who you are, and you're not in love with who you are, and you're already bothered by everybody else's judgments, titles, whatever they say about you, this is not a good time to say, oh my God, I fell down the stairs and I busted my shoulder bone. And people are like, well, how'd that happen? Well, I was walking down the stairs. I seen a tennis ball on the steps, and I didn't want Terry to slip on it. So what I did is while I had coffee in my hand, I tried to take my left foot and just use my toes to push it down the rest of the stairs. And in doing so, I lost balance with my other leg. And so both legs are straight up in the air. And then I land on my shoulder blade on the steps. Not only put me in excruciating pain, but then my body stiffened up and I slid down the rest of the stairs. Now, the Bobby Hollis of 30 years ago, 36 years ago, there's no way that I would have been that okay with myself to just openly say how stupid I was, that I made a mistake. And Arthur sent me the graphic, the meme that I talked about on the noon YouTube live was, things happen for a reason, but sometimes, stupid people make stupid mistakes. So that would be me. But I just wanted to open up that comment because I know a lot of people probably won't even know what some of you have gone through in your life in hardships because you just are too embarrassed, or you don't have the belief in yourself that other people would go, oh, me too. Me too. I've done that too. I've felt like that way before, and so that's just an opening statement. And I just thought that Craig and I and Matthew, visionaries here, could talk about some of the hardships that we went through in our life, and just how we seem to just do the self-sabotage stuff. And one of them is not taking personal responsibility. So see, if I'm growing up in a world where everyone told me that I should feel sorry for myself because I was taken away from my biological parents, and then I grew up in places, then it almost was okay for me to say that things weren't going good in my life because of all that drama, because of all those bad things that happened to me. See, so that allows me now not to take personal responsibility. It also allows me to be a victim. It also allows me to be in the whole mentality that I won't give life a second chance because look what it did to me so far. And so I just thought I would start out there, just because as soon as I could ask for help, or as soon as someone realized that I needed to be helped, most of the times I didn't ask for it. It's like how fast I went from having this awful lifestyle to a great lifestyle because all it took was awareness. I was the same person. I just responded to it different. I acted about it different. What I'm going through right now is a perfect reason not to do anything and lay on the couch and complain that I can't lay a certain way because I'm in pain and that I think the world's going to end. I just don't choose not to, so, and I don't think I'm special. I see people all the time. It was like, their show to play with Kobe Bryant, went to grab a ball and it dislocated his finger. And so it showed him let the ball go out of bounds. And when he turned around, they were able to get a shot at his finger. And it's one of those things where immediately when you see it, you feel like you're going to throw up. There's something in our mentality that when you see someone injured like that, you go, ah. And he went over and the guy that was the, probably athletic trainer or whatever, it wasn't, Phil Jackson. And he goes over to him and you could see him immediately, put his hand out. And the guy looked at him right in the face and jerked it back into place. And you could see how much it shot pain through the rest of his body. And then, the next expression that you've seen on Kobe Bryant's face is one of these, like, dang, man, that shock of pain almost put me in the next stratosphere. And then guess what? It's time for tape the fingers to the other fingers. And he didn't even leave the game. and some people are like, we know some people that, if you sort of follow them, they fall on the ground and act like they, was like stabbed or something, from, flopping. They even have that. So I hope that was a good opening up statement to get Matt and Craig on it. And so go ahead.
Craig, you want to go first?
Well, I like to think that, thank you, by the way, Robert and Matt. This is a great topic because it does make you think about, how you deal with stuff. And because hardship is part of life.
Totally.
Totally. I kind of look at, I know there's a meme out there, at least for actors, but it applies to everybody too, where, or even just in success period. What, the one image that we look at is a straight line to success from start to finish. That's the first part of the meme. But on the other side, on the other half, it shows that the line is squiggled, goes through. There's a little, like a lake that you have to go traversing through. There's obstacles in the way. And that's all part of the journey. So
Right.
what we think is, yes, it's going to be a simple straight line from here to here. The best laid plans of everybody. But that's part of what this is all about. I mean, about what we deal with on a daily basis. Great times and not so great times. And it's a matter of, and one thing I've learned, and especially Robert, following you, is the mindset. It's like, okay, yes, things happen, and just keep going through it. And I know that everybody has had that kind of an experience. And I'm sure we can talk about several different kinds of experiences as we go along, because I want to also let Matt say a few words too. But it's just, it's just part of the life journey that we are all on. And like Linda Blackdeer is saying here in the chat, move on and adjust to a fantastic journey, because that's what this is. You only got one chance here to be here to enjoy this life. Let's just, okay, fine, deal with it, take care of it, don't let it consume you, and move on.
No, I mean, excellently said, Craig. This topic, of course, like it's one of those ones that I would say can be upbeat. Like it can, if you think of it as an outcome of positivity, like that you can actually deal with hardship in a positive way and not a negative way. Because when most people hear the words hardship, or the word hardship, they think immediately like, please no. Like, and in a lot of ways, a lot of anxiety comes from the worry about this happening. That you're, even on the happiest day of your life, you can still not be present and not be there because of the fear that those days will come to an end and you'll eventually have to deal with hardship. Now, I've said this before, we're all kind of promised that we're going to have to deal with hardship. It's not something that none of us will have to deal with. You can't avoid it. It's more how you keep your mental state going through it. And that has everything to do, in my opinion, you guys, with the people that you surround yourself with. Because like in a lot of ways, people go, I'm stoic. And I like to be stoic too. I'm stoic. I just deal with things as they come to me. And I handled them then. But the truth of the matter is there's just some shit that you deal with that you cannot get yourself out of, that you actually need a community or a group of people to be around you to go, hey, you're not doing okay. Like we can clearly tell that you're experiencing some things or going through some things, and you want to find those people. And if that isn't something that you have in your life, or you can't, say like for whatever reason you have agoraphobia and you can't leave your house, I would say there's a bunch of stuff on social media or groups that you can find online that you can talk to people, Discords, all these types of things. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I've been through therapy quite a bit. Anytime I'm dealing with something that I don't feel mentally like I can get over myself, I'm texting my therapist, making an appointment, going, I need to talk to you about this. And I cannot tell you guys, a lot of people seem to like think therapy is a negative or it means something bad on you. Like, oh, I can't fix my own problems.
Asking for help of any kind.
Right. And you get in these situations with smart people like my dad and Craig, and they're able to go, well, have you thought about it from this perspective? And my experience with therapy outside of like cognitive behavioral therapy and techniques and stuff like that has always been that. It's always been a perspective change. It's always been him talking to me and going, well, have you seen it from this person's perspective? Because we get so much in our own heads and force ourselves to deal with hardship because of others, right? The fear of what others will think about us. So my opening statement is on this subject is just to surround yourself or find a community. And I believe this is one that truthfully is talking about this stuff and sharing it and supporting one another. I've seen so many people go through this stuff in the community and work with us or my dad on it. So that's my opening statement. So
Yeah. And it's crazy how I know Albert Einstein is given credit for that quote that that the mind that got you, the decisions in the mind that got you in your current situation is usually not the same mindset that can get you out of it. And it's because that's where we've all seen where they do interventions for people, right? And the person that is getting the intervention done to is 1000% in denial. You know what I mean? And it's not that they're lying, it's they believe their perception. So the whole concept comes down to, how you doing? Great. I'm doing great. I've said that in some scenarios where my life was anything but that. You know what I mean?
right.
And it's like if someone reaches out and says, hey, listen, you were on my thoughts and my minds today. Melody was on my mind and my heart, so I reached out to her and left her a message on her phone. And right away, it's like, when people reach out and our first thoughts are, I don't know why you hit my mind, but I thought I'd just reach out. And is there anything that I can do for you or whatever? And the very first thought in our mind is, there's no way I'm going to burden this person with my problems.
Right.
It's like, I see both of you nodding. So that must be one of those human things that we do. You know what I mean?
Because we care.
Yeah,
and we don't want to burden somebody else with it.
We're just so bad at overthinking. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it stops. Yeah, it completely stops you from having the ability to grow with somebody too. Like I think a lot of people like and we're all human, right? So it's like we kind of want to be the knight in shining armor to the people around us. And be that support network, and then very rarely tap into that support network ourselves at the fear that, and I've watched my dad as he's dealt with his injury over the last week be very vulnerable and open with the community and the following about how much of a pain in the ass it is, how much you're dealing with it. And you could vocalize, and this is something maybe he would have done 10 years ago, but you could just keep all of that to yourself. But
Right.
then you're stopping everybody that's here from actually connecting with you in a genuine way and going, me too. I deal with that shit too. And I think that that's one of those things that not only we want to build a community around here for, but it just in general, like, I don't know, talking about the shit that we deal with as human beings. I don't get why our ego gets involved and we have to keep it to ourselves, right? Like if we all communicated about this shit, there'd be a lot more people alive.
Yeah. Part of
You
it
know what
is
I mean?
how you're raised also, because I remember, and okay, I'm not going to rag on my mom because this is a story that, because of the way we've started, it just came to mind. Okay. My mom and dad, my real dad and mom were divorced when I was age 6. And so the first thing that my dad says that I remember, God, I love you, Dad, but Um, now you're the man of the house. Okay. Now you have the responsibility to, look over your brother and sister
At the age of 6.
at the age of 6. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to be strong for everybody. And I got to help my mom. And honestly, that went with me through a long time in life.
Yeah.
And for me, okay, yes, I love a good I'm going to be honest, I love a good cry when a movie can really, pull those heartstrings. But when it came to certain other matters, it was just like, how do I deal with this?
Right.
And emotionally, it bottled me up.
Sure.
And so that hardship honestly developed so much that I think, I've never really, well, one time I almost exploded on my brother, and my mom literally came running out and said, was like, oh my God, it sounds like he's going to kill him. I mean, that's but I mean, and then it was, in a sense, it was a relief because whatever was bottled up inside came out. But then it was just like, wait a minute, I gotta, years later. And like I said earlier, Robert, because, you also help guide as being a mentor in a lot of this, because what you teach is not just business,
right.
It's personal. And in the years that I have known you, I have become more open to dealing with things like this.
Yeah.
Even just the little phrases of, just, okay, get it out, or do not, there is no try. Yes, it's Yoda, but still, I mean, these are things that you profess. This is where a good mentor, a good therapist, a good coach helps. And you've even shared stories about your mentors who have helped you get over those hardships.
Yeah. It's like that whole concept that we end up being, locked in our head. I know on other podcasts, we talked about being, a criminal, a person, not a criminal, I shouldn't use, but, we're a locked up person in our own thoughts and our confusions and how we try to process information. And Craig, I've seen you change so much. When I first met you, Craig was one of those people that if there was a problem, there's no one else that could solve the problem than Craig. And Craig would go on this seeking to figure out this. Of course, Craig was dealing with us doing streaming back then as well.
And I bet you it was 10 times harder.
And I would always see Craig through the process. The problem would get resolved or temporarily resolved, but Craig couldn't let it go.
I can relate to that.
It's like, well, listen, I don't know why it did what it did, but it's okay now. And Craig's like, it is not okay.
Very true. Very true.
He would be on hours with the tech online and doing emails and doing all this stuff to resolve an issue, because Craig thinks so far ahead that he's trying to stop a problem from happening again. And there's other people that when a problem happens and it resolves itself, they just go, well, whatever, and just move on. You know what I mean? And Matt's laughing because maybe that's why Craig and Matt have a bunch of conversations with me, because it's like, listen, I just, regroup yourself. You almost crashed the car, but you didn't crash the car. Get it straightened out. Now put the hammer back down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Craig.
I was going to say, because Jerome Marshall in the chat says hardships can chisel our mindset. And absolutely.
No, they're part of life. Yeah. I think that's one of those things, right? Like, and this is not my wisdom. It's from many people, but it's like, we really deal with, hardship and negative things in the wrong way. And normally the way that we deal with them is to avoid them, right? Yeah. When the reality is that you dealing with those things, depression, sadness, loneliness, any of those things are signs that your brain has, just like happiness or any of those other signs. And if you took them out of the realm of us deciding what's good and bad and you put them on an equal playing field, you'll realize that they're all part of the human experience. And
Right.
that the hardship that you go through, the things that you deal with mentally are there to grow you as a person. That and there's that age-old saying too, like
Say,
you don't
say,
know
say,
great
say
times
that.
without bad times,
Say
right?
that. Say that again, Matt.
Well, yeah, you don't know great times without the bad times, but like you really have to put yourself in a position to think about negative things as a benefit to your life instead of thinking them as something dragging you down.
Right.
That some of the best art, some of the best writing, some of the best creative things, us all being here because of my dad and everything like that happened through hardship. Did not happen through happiness, all those types of things. It would be great if the world worked that way, but I've said this in past podcasts. I wouldn't want it that way because I feel like if every one of us could take a pill tomorrow that made all of us happy permanently, we would lose a lot of the human experience
Bored.
immediately.
We'd be
Um,
bored out of our gourd.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. So
What-
you really
whatever
have to.
whatever the gourd is, you know what I mean? It's like we constantly have these things. And one of the things is there's a lot of these like philosophies and sayings and stuff like that that we've heard where the the whole concept that when a child sees a cocoon, you know, that's forming from a butterfly, that, what they do is they see a little bit of motion, and just like an eggshell, you see the eggshell moving around. And so the concept is that, okay, well, I'm going to let it go. It looks like it's struggling, but it's through the struggle that the butterfly gets strength in its wings so it can fly. So when someone tries to go in and try to stop the winter, you know what I mean,
Mm,
stop, go in there and try to, and I've suffered from this. I've had to consistently, with my intuition and working on my intuition, that infinite wisdom that I listen to, it's sometimes my ego gets in the way because
Yes.
I see an individual struggling. I've had that struggle. I've had that hardship, and I could prevent them. I could prevent them from going through that struggle and that hardship. And all of a sudden, it's like, because I'm willing to listen to my instincts, it's like, do not rob them. Do not steal this hardship from them. They need.
Melody is saying in the chat, the perfect timing, Melody. Thank you, Melody Riba. There are so many blessings found in what we call hardships and challenges if we want to see them.
Right.
well, yeah, she's got it right too. And what you're saying, Dad, like trying to stop people too, your children, your family, your friends, the people that you love and care about from having to deal with these things, I think is natural. Like, of course, you
Yeah.
don't want the people you love and care about to have to deal with hardship. At the same time, you can't helicopter them and decide or dictate their lives the way that the thing that we all get is to decide what this experience is for us. And I
Right.
think the way that we deal with hardship is very unique to us. Like everybody deals with it differently. Um, some people deal with hardship by building resentment, and that's kind of what Craig was talking about with his brother, maybe that you get your hardship and you put it away, you compartmentalize it and put it away, and then it just builds and builds into resentment and anger because you start going, why am I the only person that has to deal with this shit?
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Why
Craig,
won't any of these other
yeah.
people take some of this load off of me? Right?
Yes.
Craig mentality is, someone said to me that I'm the man of the family, and so now I'm going to be a father figure to my brother. And Craig's brother is like, "You're my brother, bug off."
Yes, pretty much. That is, yes. And it's, yeah, but see, that's the thing, is that we get programmed. And I know we've talked about programming on earlier podcasts. And it's just, it is, in a sense, it's frustrating, but you gotta deal with it.
Yeah.
And Matt, to continue a little bit with what you were saying, what I've been starting to do lately, at least over the last few years, is when I get to that point of the hardship being such a challenge, and I recognize it. And it takes sometimes a lot to recognize that you've got this pressure, this buildup. And I basically have told people, and sometimes they find it annoying because they care. And I understand that. But
Right.
I just say, look, please leave me alone. Now, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean it in a way of I will deal with it. Give me like maybe a few minutes. Give me an hour. Let me come back because I got to blow off that steam or I got to settle myself down. And it's not that
That's
I
such
don't
good
want your
wisdom.
I don't
Yeah.
not it's not that I don't want your help. I do. But I've got to do something to just settle me down, to back away from whatever the situation is, whatever the hardship is that I am dealing with so that I can focus and I can say, "Okay, now let me look at this from a wider perspective, a bigger perspective, a
Mhm.
better perspective." Because sometimes you don't want to be around me when when it, when it gets to that snapping point. I will say that I have stopped myself many times since that time with my
Yeah.
brother because of that. But I've had to make myself aware of it.
Yeah.
Mhm. You
Terry,
know that.
Terry and I are watching this thing called Bear. It's about a guy that's a chef, right? And it was funny because him, whenever you're in a moment with something, so they got away from the moment of this, the him and this other chef that he's coaching and training, and they just were able to say away from the emotion and everything, is there any doubt in your mind that I love and care for you as a human being? And both of them went, yeah. And so he said, when it starts to ramp up, he said he learned this from his mentor. So in the emotion of it being so stern, it's like the person that believes that they have the wisdom in this situation does not want to instruct. Do what I tell you to do and do it right now. I don't want it done another way. Do this right now. Well, now the other person's feelings are hurt. You know what I mean? And it just goes on a deep deal. So he said what him and his mentor would do is they would look at each other and take their fist and hit their heart and then rub it. And so just look at the other person while you're screaming at them and go, It's like it's like, listen, yeah, I know this is we want to rip each other's freaking heads off right now.
Well,
but
I think yeah, I mean
but
that
in the
anger,
midst of
Dad.
this, I love you. In the midst of
Yeah.
this, we need to find a way to make this okay right now. It's
Mhm.
not about us wanting to be right over each other. It's just that we're both stuck with being right fighters right now.
Well, people wonder sometimes, and I've dealt with this a lot in my own life, but it's like people wonder why those blow ups happen, right? And you go to therapy, you try to figure it out. You go, why do I explode like this? Why do my emotions just all of a sudden get the better of me in these situations? And I'm arguing with people that I don't need to be arguing with, especially if you love and care about them. And it all comes back to you holding it inside and building that resentment. It
Yep.
all comes back to you going, and when your mind starts letting those emotions out, even if it's in a negative way, it goes, go for it. Just go
Yeah.
for it.
Stand up for
I
yourself.
cannot, this dam is not going to hold anymore. Just let
Stand
it
up for
loose. So what?
yourself. This person's hurt you in the past. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be showing you love. Go for it. Take them out. Take them out.
Right. So in those situations, what Craig was saying is perfect. And when you do this mixed with meditation too, it can be like really, really good for you. If you can get in a situation where you can tell that your emotional state is not in your own control and you can say, I just need to go sit somewhere for a couple of minutes, meditate or process the feelings that I have and cool down, right? And, you know, as we're talking about hardship and stuff, it really it's interesting that we moved immediately into, I think, one of the things that because we don't have a woman here, I think something that men deal with way more than in general. Like we're very very reactionary in an emotional way with that resentment and that
Yeah.
anger because we think hardship is our way of life, you know? And there's a lot of people, it's not just men, but women too, that feel that level of hardship and build it into that resentment and don't know what to do with it. You
Right.
know, like that, fuck man, like why is the whole world out to get me? Why don't these
Yeah.
people understand what I'm going through? Why even if they do understand what you're going through or they know, they might not understand it because you're not talking about it. But um you go, "They know I'm dealing with stuff. They know I'm stressed. So why are they adding on to this stuff?" And it's
Right.
like, nobody's doing that to you. You're doing that to you,
Yeah.
right? And it
And
takes wisdom to figure that out.
yeah, and we're talking about, there's so many different because again, we're all uniquely our miracle. We're all uniquely who we are. And so what might be a really incredible hardship for one person is actually not even a blip on the radar for somebody else. It's not even a speed bump. So now
Yeah.
when you're dealing with people, and I've had a guy one time that he said to me, and it was really really crazy, where he was just saying, hey, he just he was such a right fighter, and he wanted me to understand how bad his life was because of his relationship with his father without knowing my story.
Mhm.
Mm.
And he just kept going. He says, he says, you must just have an incredible relationship with your father for you not to understand what I'm going through right now. And so when I snapped, my snap that I said to the guy is, I go, I just wish I had a father. And you should have seen his face. It was like, what? And I said, yeah, I got taken away from my father. And he's like, and you haven't seen him since. I said, no. And you could see him spin on a dime, because as soon as you know somebody else's perspective, which a lot of us, when we're upset and going through difficulties and hardships, I would say that in times like that, I have been extremely selfish. It's like, I'm really not interested in anybody's damn story because I'm trying to get out of my cocoon. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
you measure it against your own too, which is
yeah,
something we all do, right? Because we're in our own personal experience. So you put yourself, and like you started saying, Dad, it's like for some things, for some people are really, really hard, and for others, they're not. People do this with their kids all the time,
yeah,
right? Where they're going, especially when they're teenagers, they'll put them in this position where they're going, high school is going to be over eventually. Don't get the big deal about what you're dealing with. Imagine being an adult and having to pay the bills and blah, 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 not realizing that this is a perfect moment to speak about how to deal with hardship
yeah,
and speak about the fact that it exists and that you have to, that this is just the beginning of it, even not that you have
right.
to
Yeah.
scare them, but it's really an internal issue that we all,
I'll give you something to cry about.
or you do the childhood thing, which my dad never did this with me or my brothers. But you do, but my friends have had to deal with it, right? And my wife has had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it so much harder than you. What are you complaining about?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Jeez.
Or you could do this with a spouse or a friend. I've had it so much harder than you, so I don't get why you have to put all this stuff on me. It's like that goes back to the same level of resentment that you've not dealt with your own hardship in the right way, so therefore you resent other people dealing with less
Right.
or what you
Yeah.
consider less, because you're also discrediting the fact that every single human being has a different mind by doing that. And that some people deal with shit that you'll never have to deal with, right? So some people have to deal with mental illness, mental disorders, things like that, that make things more difficult for them to process or deal with than somebody that doesn't. So I think that that goes back to
Very good. Very good.
humility and listening, right? So
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And it is so important when what you just said, Matt, listening, understanding that, the other person is different. I had that with my girlfriend recently where, okay, yes, you want to, again, you want to feel for them if they're going through a hardship. You want to be there for them. But sometimes when you say, I know how you feel, no, you don't.
Wow.
You do not. And
I love telling people that.
yeah. And it took me a while, seriously, to shut the heck up.
Yeah.
Let them
Well, not
vent.
not going to that immediately fix mode.
Yes.
When as Matthew was growing up, there was certain things that he was explaining to me that one whenever someone you love is struggling with anything, it immediately puts you in a really vulnerable spot. And then the second spot is for me to understand and humble myself enough that I did not know how to deal with it. I grew up in an environment and around a group of people without anyone feeling sorry with me, where I just have never been put into this situation of understanding what the best needs of my son was. You know what I mean? And so
Or your partner.
yeah, and so that's when you got to stop being the fixer and realize that your love and your closeness to that individual starts bringing in that expert from afar. I think this is probably one of the most unused skills in the world, other than listening, is for a person to go, I hope you're not mad at me for saying this. I don't know how you feel. I don't have the capacity to understand it. And for that reason, we need to find somebody that does. No.
well, to have people in your life that care that much about you, I think is all goes back to surrounding yourself with people that actually do, and that they
Mhm.
actually identify those things as things that need work or things that you need support with, instead of telling you not to deal with them. If you're
Right.
around a bunch of people that are saying you're just not dealing with it in the right way, that I mean, that can become even more resentment, obviously, because
Sorry to interrupt, but what's that
sure.
stupid meme? And since we're all men here, what's that stupid meme that shows up on social media all the time? Can anyone share with me how to tell my wife to calm down?
There was a video somebody made about this where and this isn't just for women, obviously, but it is a man and a woman in the conversation, and they're partners. And so he sits down and she's talking about all this pain, and this is similar to the dog with the nail thing. She's got like a nail stuck in her head, and she's talking about all this pain she's going through, and then it cuts back to the guy and he goes, just pull the nail out of your head and then you won't have to deal with it anymore. And then it cuts back to her and she's so upset and just storms out. And then it's clips of her like talking to her friends like, he never listens to me. He never tries to understand who I am. And all of us are we're like, oh, just pull the nail out of your head. But the whole video is about the point is that a majority of human beings, it's not just men, try to solve other people's problems because they think that is why someone's talking to them.
Yeah.
And men do it even more, I'd say, just because that's how we deal with our own problems. It's not because we're men. I think it's because we're taught to deal with your problems, you have to fix them immediately. And
We
that's
are the man
because
of the
we're told,
house.
right? We're told,
Yeah.
if you don't fix your own problems, who's going to, right?
Right.
Men don't really open up in groups of other men either. Like that's a huge problem. Like of
Makes you
conversations
look
with my
makes
wife
you look
about
weak. Right? Makes you look weak, makes you look like you don't have it together.
yeah, so you have to surround yourself with men that are okay with that. My friends talk about their mental health issues or the things they're dealing with all the time. So like I think that that's a good thing to have that opportunity to do that myself and with them. But like and with you guys of course. But like I really think that if you give yourself the opportunity to deal with the hardship and the things that you're going through in a healthy way, like you make a spot to deal with it, even if it's putting some time away, that you really, really will see the benefits of not avoiding it. So,
One of the things I'd like to throw out, change this angle for just a little bit,
sure.
is this sort of was a download while you guys were talking that came to me. There's this what if whether you call it karma or whatever you call it, there's a lot of religious stuff that we've talked about in other podcasts, right? So, traditions or the way that you're brought up, this is the way this situation's handled. You see what I mean? It's like, now we look back and you hear about, the stuff as I was a kid. The thing that bothered me more when I was a child is not only seeing how abusive my parents were to each other, but how abusive they were to me. And it was like this unspoken word that everybody knew what was going on, but that's none of our business. You see what I mean? It's like, well, you just don't talk about what's going on in somebody else's relationship. And I know people that are still suffering from money because they grew up in relationships in an environment where you did never, ever, ever talk about money. So now when this karma thing comes around, and depending on your religious of this, what are your guys' thoughts on, that the consistency of a hardship keeps showing up is really the universe or whatever the hell's out there, just trying to get us to get that lesson. I seen Melody in one of the posts. She said, well, Robert, do you think that what happened to you is an accident or a mistake? And my first thought was lesson. It's like I wasn't paying attention enough for my mind to go, maybe that's not a good idea. There were so many other ways to handle moving that tennis ball off the steps and the way that I chose to do it. And I got to stop from laughing because it's making my eyes water.
Yeah,
You guys are going, this guy loves to laugh. And then when I laugh, it's like it hurts.
I know.
But what are your guys' thoughts on that? It's that, okay, the reason that this keeps happening to this individual is because they won't learn from it. They just keep making the same decisions, staying in the same place. And I mean, this was a thought on my mind. It was like you hear about these people that are in just really, really awful, bad relationships, but you can't tell a 9 and 10-year-old kid that if he's being abused, well, why don't you just move? And so it was back in those days that, the worst thing that could happen, honestly, the worst thing that had happened is not that the world would end. It's that you got a divorce and you have to admit that you had a bad relationship that failed. See
no, I mean, a lot of people stay in bad relationships for that reason, that the public response to leaving that relationship is not something you want to deal with. So yeah, no, that makes sense. But Craig, do you want to go first as far as talking about what he's...
Well, to piggyback on you, Matt, I was guilty of that for many, many years. My marriage that I had, I mean, if I look back, because I was a child of divorce, as I mentioned, I didn't want to have to go through that again. I did not want to have that mark on me saying that, not only was I a child of divorce, yes, Robert, exactly, the L sign on your forehead, but I didn't want to. I wanted to be married and done. But in today's life, that doesn't happen. I should have been divorced maybe 4.5 years into my marriage. I'm not going to go through all the details. I'll say that always.
Man.
And it didn't take until the day before my 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Before I finally woke up, literally, and said, this is not good. I was already sleeping on the couch. I went into where my wife was sleeping, my then wife, and said, you know what? Tomorrow's our 10th anniversary. And honestly, I don't think this is working. I cannot honestly say that um, this is worth celebrating. And yeah, it took me a while. It was a hardship. I bared that hardship for another 5+ years, more than I should have. And I even had
Mhm.
friends and relatives who said, "Why are you doing this?"
See, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Thanks for being so honest, because isn't it funny that when a couple does break up, everybody goes, I didn't see that happening.
Yeah,
Well, that means because they were pretending the entire time they were freaking around you. Because we got to act
Right.
like we got to act like we're this in this happy relationship. Sorry, Craig.
no, 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 that's fine. And I will say that, okay, and nothing against the person. She's moved on with her life, fine. But as a couple, we couldn't do anything, and it was blocking me from becoming who I wanted to be
Of
and
course.
where I wanted to be. And the only way, and you've said this many times, is step out of the box.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go for it. Do something. You know,
It's
if the
your
per
life. You get to
it's
decide what to do with it, and people
right.
give that luxury away, and
Yes.
that's easy to do. I get, I not from personal experience, but I get and understand being in a situation that you don't want to be in anymore and being absolutely stuck and just waiting for something to happen so you don't have to make the decision to deal with it.
You want
Right.
that
Like,
sign.
right, exactly, and it isn't a sign, it's more of a whisper, right, that
Yeah,
you have to listen to, going, "Ah, this doesn't really feel right," or, "I don't really feel like," yeah, if you're going on your 10th anniversary, you should feel like celebrating it, right, and if your
And
exactly.
then
response is
we start doing the they t-shirts again, right? So since I have also been through a divorce, Craig, it was just a thing that you did. You don't move away and ask your girlfriend to go with you without you don't shack up, and that sounds stupid, right? And so no, instead of shacking up, uh, two newly turned 20-year-olds should get married. And I looked at those wedding pictures and I'm like, what the fuck?
Mhm.
Why did you allow these kids to marry each other?
yeah,
It's insane to me when we all know that there's people that are watching us live and recorded that were married before they were 20 or had kids before they were 20. And so now all of a sudden you make this commitment because that's what you should do. And then you wake up and you look at each other and go, who the hell are you?
That's what society has put on us to say we should be married by this point in time. Well,
right.
not quite.
No,
I mean,
I
each person
me
is
and
different.
me and Hannah got married really young.
Yeah.
Hannah was 19, I was 22. So we've been together. We'll be married 9 years in November. So we're coming up on 10 years ourselves. And I, every single time a young couple goes, "Oh, we're young. Do you guys think we should get married?" We always go, there's this situation, even though
Right.
it's been really great for us, there's still this situation that, man, you get married in the years that you're becoming an adult and a person. There's so much back and forth growth there going
Yeah.
on. And we were lucky enough to work through all of that growth to be growing in the same direction.
Right.
But man, I get how there's this running joke like if you get to 30 and you don't have a divorce, you survived. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people get
Oh,
Twitter
that's
pated and
hard to
they do get married.
say. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, it's weird, right? Because
yeah.
it's not really the truth. I don't believe that, but I think we see certain things in life because of what we're brought up and what we're told as being so like bad in a way. And when
Mhm.
you look at it deep down, like I get some people's religious beliefs change what marriage means or change what those things mean. But deep down, it's a contract with the government saying that we're going to share everything. And in that situation, if that's not working out for you anymore, you shouldn't feel all of this guilt towards the outside world like you're a failure for
Right.
going, this doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not growing in the direction that I would like to be growing in. and I think that it's definitely more normal. And I think people see this as a negative for some reason, where they go, oh, divorce is higher now. And we need to go back to traditional things where people stayed in marriage longer.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
getting
Yeah.
out of those marriages because they suck and they
Right.
have options now. And back in the day, you didn't have the internet, that's for sure. So your options may have been 3 other partners, and you go, this is the best out of the 3 that I
Mhm.
had
Well,
as options, or I have to leave my environment. So
once two teenagers move out of their homes in with each other into another apartment, and to afford that, they both got to get jobs. That really starts messing with that personal development of growing to know each other.
And
Like,
that there's the good and the bad to that too, because you do
yeah,
get to understand what it's going to take now to partner up with somebody
right.
and to live together in the same house, in the same environment, and do pretty much a lot of the same activities. But yeah, and Matt, if I may, real quick, my mom and dad divorced when I was 6. And this
Mm,
was a time when divorce for a woman was very frowned upon. And I know the struggle my mom went through, the hardship that she went through just to try to make it succeed so that the 3 of us
Were they
could, well,
were
4 of us could survive.
Craig,
right.
were both your parents Jewish?
Yes, they were.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you
Wow.
had that on
It's
top
like
of it possibly too,
it's
right?
like it's like the whole world is going against them. It's like crazy.
It was a rough period of time. I don't remember what happened at
Yeah.
that point in time. I really don't. And I don't know if I want to remember.
Mm,
Honestly, I mean, there have been times where I've actually said, unfortunately, my dad's passed, so I can't ask him. And I don't know if I really want to bring it I've asked my mom, and she just says that we've had issues, and that was it. I
Yeah.
don't know what led up to it. I remember a period of time before it happened, and then I remember a period of time starting after it happened. I
Yeah.
don't
sure.
remember the in between.
Watching other cultures and other people deal with hardships, and like I one of the things that I'm watching, it's so personal to people, but watching people go through a hardship like a death of a child, and watch how it can totally rock a human being to losing all sensibility of who they are as a person, but they're no longer a spouse. They're no longer parents to their children. They just, start abusing any kind of alcohol or whatever because the loss is just too far out there. And then you can see the extremes because we're so unique that the next thing you find out that I was just hearing this guy was arrested, and they were saying because it's Megan's Law. You know what I mean? And to think that, wow, so that's another way
Mm,
of taking that hardship. You lose a child. So now you put a whole um, thing around it, a cause and a matter, and actually get people to change the law of how laws are looked at and how they're taken care of. And now they get to say it was your daughter's name, Megan's Law. This happened because of
Mhm.
Megan's Law. Back in the old days, this person would have got really, really taken advantage of more. And I'm just like going, you see all the different spectrums in the world of how the people deal with either financial hardship, relationship hardship, physical hardship. I mean, it's still mind boggling to me that for no apparent reason, you can see a child, all of a sudden, they got cancer or are they born deformed. What's that like for hardship? To me, as you talk about each one of these areas of hardship, it really, really goes back to what gratitude has done in my life. You know what I mean? It's like even Mike Kupis, a dear friend of mine, he used to say this statement all the time is he goes, I was going to work one day and I seen a person without any shoes. And he says it bothered me so much that I took my shoes off and gave it to the guy. And then he says, I walked a block further and then I seen a man with no legs. And it's like, you know, and every time he tells that story, everybody giggles. But it's like, wow, they're not even on the same plane as Hardships. But yet we see the same thing. So you see a guy that, doesn't have any arms, and the next thing he's making millions from being a motivational speaker and also an archer. So he looks
No,
at
doing more than people
Vujicic,
do with
right?
arms.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a few people that have done that for sure.
yeah, and then you, of course, you get people that will lose a limb, and they really mentally have made a decision that their life is over, that no one will want them. They don't want to be a burden on anybody. And I think we've all heard this statement too. It's like the number one statement that's always said after a suicide is, I had no clue.
Oh,
That the people that are closest to them, did not know.
and that is true. I
It's
unfortunately
like,
have experienced
geez,
that with
we're
a
so
friend.
stuck. We're so stuck in a world because of the way that the world acts us to be, and what are they going to think, and how humiliated am I going to, what are my parents going to think of me, and I'm going to make them look like they're stupid because they have a kid that can't handle this. And so, immediately the more that you see people draw within themselves, and they're not returning calls, and they're doing that, again, we talked about, be very, very careful with wanting to fix something, but
Mhm.
you got to be so non-judgmental, and so much love and compassion, and a good listener, that the person feels safe sharing with you. Not immediately be going, well, you got the world by the tail. You shouldn't feel this way.
No, I think that's something that a lot of people notice with celebrities. Like you'll see people like Anthony Bourdain or people that we admire
Robin
go,
Williams.
Robin Williams, right? Yeah, you have people that deal with stuff that you just don't know about, and that's why it's so important not to scale the way that you feel about it based off of your own personal ego and opinion of what someone's dealing with, because everybody deals with shit differently than you. And when you accept that and you're there to show up and listen instead of try to fix it or try to solve it or find them a solution, you'll realize that they can come to that solution themselves, or they'll ask you to help. And that means the world, because that shows a level of trust in what you're actually going to do, right? They go, okay,
Right.
I trust that your heart's in the right place for me. And I think that, when people deal with loss, especially, that's one of those ones that, like you were saying, Dad, losing a child or something along those lines, the loss, there's nothing even, and I'm not a therapist or anything like that,
Right.
but it's like, in my thought, I don't know if there's anything externally that can fix that. It all has to happen internally. And
Yeah.
the external things might help that happen, but even if you change a law, they still have to go back to a house without that child, and you have to deal with that regardless of those things.
My
And I
grandma,
think
my grandma, we called her Grandma Biella, but she was Grandma Nice. She had 9 kids,
mm,
and there was like only like once every 2 or 3 years we would have a family reunion. And I never, she was like 1000% love, compassion, patience. She always had this garden. It was just amazing who this person was. And every once in a while you would catch her, and she would be like this discussion that she was going to have with God. You know what I mean? And I'd go, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Yeah." And then all of a sudden she would say, "Man, when I'm no longer here, the conversation that I'm going to have with God is not going to be a good one." And because I think before she died, she buried 7 of her kids. And she was like, "This is messed up."
yeah.
I'm supposed to go first. But the way she took care of herself and all the other stuff that she did, it was like, it was just golly, to watch one child after another. You know what I mean? And I would always look at her and just go, wow, man, that would not be fun.
No, I mean, dealing with that hardship must have been really hard, but at the same time, she's it sounds like at that point had come to terms with what it was, at least for her. And some people do take it to that religious spot, and that kind of was like a question you were asking earlier, Dad.
Yeah.
Because like for me personally, not being religious, just kind of I've become more spiritual as I've gotten older. So like when you go, oh, these things are coming around over and over again, trying to teach me a lesson. Um, I don't know if I attach that to any like higher being or power necessarily,
Or
or
the word
like
karma. I couldn't explain karma to you if my life.
right. No, I mean, I could go on a whole thing about karma and why I don't think it exists. But for me, it always comes back to maybe, possibly, the work that had been done leading up to that hardship reoccurring again. What, like, if I wanted to go to that spiritual place, I would say that it keeps coming around again, not to teach you the original lesson, but because you're more prepared in a mental state to deal with it this time. And
Wow.
that
What
every
if it's
single
just
time.
this? What if it's just this? You just opened my mind up to a different way of thinking, Matt. Whatever that hardship ended up being, it's pretty obvious that you hadn't worked to a level of awareness, that you were still having the thoughts that you maybe shouldn't have had, and you were still thinking the way you were thinking. Maybe there was some
Right.
unforgiveness that you haven't done. So when people say this keeps coming back, trying to learn us the same lesson, what if it all is nothing to do with karma or a spiritual thing? It's just you're still doing the same shit that you were doing to bring it to come to pass
No, of
last
course.
time.
No, I mean, and this,
Stop,
like,
stop doing that shit, and you're gonna stop showing up at this intersection.
well, that's a large part of it, of course, the awareness, and that's the wisdom stuff Craig was talking
Wow.
about, was stepping away, is that,
Yeah.
decades before were in my own situation, it's like the things that I used to do or the way that I used to respond to things is completely different now
Yeah.
because I'm more wise at the outcome for the ways that I contribute to that happening. And if I take
Wow.
myself and put myself in a position where I get to dictate the outcome, I feel more comfortable. And the best way to do that is to stop myself from making the outcome negative. That if I could put myself in a position, having a conversation with someone, even if it's an argument, and this is something I'm still learning to this day, you guys. Like it's not something I'm like, oh, years ago I was this way and I'm not this way now. I still see it recurring in my behavior every now and
Yeah,
then.
this morning while you're
Um,
walking the dog.
no, of course, people piss you off while they're out or something happens and you
Yeah.
slip a little bit and then you go, but I mean, the wisdom is knowing that you slipped and not continuously going, I can't believe that person did this or that. It's like bring it back internally and go, shit, I control how this happens for me
And
Right.
is
in a
it
lot of
coming
ways
around?
mentally.
Yeah. And is it
Right.
coming around again to teach you the lesson so that you do make the right choice
Right.
from that point and move on from it? Isn't that the whole premise behind Groundhog Day, the
Right.
movie?
No, of
Yeah,
course.
It will
true.
Well, there's
continue.
that age
It
there's that
continues to
age-old
happen
saying,
over
"When it
and
rains, it
over again.
pours," right?
Right.
Yes.
Like, when it rains, it pours, and people don't realize that that's saying the reason that it rains when it rains, it pours is because of your mental state, right? About the things that are
Yeah.
happening.
When
Your
are you gonna pull
awareness,
out
I
that
guess.
umbrella and put it
Why
over
why
your
do
head?
things
There you
always
go.
why
Yeah,
do
Craig.
things always come in threes?
There's another one.
Because you're
Yeah.
thinking in threes, right? Why every time I get someone pulls in front of me, the car's always blue. I don't understand.
Yeah.
The universe must be telling me something. It's like,
Stay
well, for
away
me,
from
it's
blue
not that way.
cars.
Yeah, now you've dealt with that hardship and now you just have a resentment around blue cars and then all of a sudden your best friend or spouse goes, "I want a blue car." And you're like
Yeah.
Nope.
Well,
angry all of a sudden and you don't know why.
this comes to that thing where, you guys have heard me say jokes about this, and I heard it first from relationships, right? But I've had a number of people come to me and they find out what I've done for 36 years. And they go, you know what? I've tried a bunch of those companies and I just never have succeeded. I just never have made any money from them. And I would always say the same thing as I said, well, you do know what they all have in common, don't you? and of course this goes over like a lead balloon, but it's like, but normally it's relationships. It's like, God, every time I get in a relationship, then the person ends up being clingy and wants to get committed, and then we have to end a relationship. And it's like, that might not be a common theme of all the girls you meet or all the partners that you meet. That might be where you get into a position and then you no longer want it to go to the next level.
Right, you're, like, internally ruining things because you fear commitment, like, in a
Yeah.
way, and a lot of people do fear commitment to a lot of things,
Or
you
success.
know? Oh, yeah, success is a huge one, like, I think a lot of people, um, as they're successful, and this doesn't have to just be financially, deal with it by, looking for the hardship in that success,
Yeah.
right? And that's very common, where it's
Mhm.
like to pinpoint the one negative thing about what's happening. And dad, you talk about this all the time. It's
Yeah.
like you can almost get your life to a place where it's a needle in a haystack, but holy shit, do you try to figure out where that needle is like almost
Mhm.
every
Yeah.
time. And that's a recurring trait that a lot of us have. So
Yeah, and when you start working, like something I always would wish upon anyone that watches this video live or recorded of all the stuff we do. I always know that I feel these podcasts are speaking a lot of different directions to a lot of people, because not only do you have three differently unique people with different backgrounds, the way they grew up, everything. I mean, it'd be fun to really talk about how just diverse us three are. You know what I mean? And then when you think about that, you sit there and you go, well, it's like why somebody would want to handle a solution to a problem in an opposite way as somebody else would like to do it. See, my thing was always with engineering, which was fun for me, is when you're with a group of people, even if they had different ages, different experiences, different religion upbringings, whatever trauma happened in their life, the coolest thing about engineering is you have a vision and everyone's on the same damn vision. And so it's like the ego gets shredded consistently, because if one person believes the way to obtain that vision is this direction, you got to be totally humble and stripped of ego if someone can make that happen effortless, more, less weight, less coefficient, more speed. So it's like we all had the same measurements that we had to measure an outcome based on. And if your idea didn't do it, it didn't do it.
this goes back to the competition thing, right? That you should
Right,
be in self you should be in self-competing mode, not outwards competing mode most of the
right,
time. Like in those situations, it really does benefit you to get better yourself every single time you do something.
right.
Um, and pat yourself on the back for that. Like really a lot of people don't do this. And if you did, your mind would respond like a dog does to a treat and go, I should do this more. But people don't do that. If you have all this anger and you're about to explode, but then you do what Craig said and just step away and allow yourself to calm down and process it in a healthy way. But then you come back and then you don't pat yourself on the back and go, holy shit, I am getting better at dealing with this thing that I've dealt with forever.
Even if it's just
If
stepping away.
Yeah.
right. If you
Knowing
if you
to
don't
change as quickly as you can
right,
to
right.
avoid that explosion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the two common denominators for me for each day I get a little wiser, not older, is that um I never thought that I would be at a place where I am today, where not only do I have more questions than I've ever had in my life, but um there is such a broad spectrum for me of I just do not need to understand that. And so it's fun to be around wise people when, a Jim Rohn would say, if I were you, I wouldn't take that class. And
Right.
of course, in the moment, it's not funny at all. You know what I mean? That you want to understand what you did wrong. And it's not about right or wrong. You didn't
Hmm.
do anything wrong, including the attempt to get a result was not wrong. And the direction that you took wasn't wrong. And so, you know, when you hear people that are on this awareness and their wisdom, that's when someone can say, so I guess you failed at this 10,000 times. And it was like, I never failed. Every one of the ways that I attempted to make it work was an idea to a compound of the other ideas that got me to this idea, that got me to this idea, that got me to the solution. So they're
Right.
looking at the whole entire journey. And you guys have probably heard me say this, but that was um, Richard Branson's statement when he was asked, you know, if there's any one thing that you could wire it down to that made you successful, what is it? And he said, wisdom, without a doubt. I don't even have to think about it. And so in a lot of ancient teachings, it always talked about the people that had everything. When God would say to them, if you could have everything, what would you want? They would say wisdom. It was never money or property or more wives. It was wisdom, you know?
Hmm.
And so the reporter then asked him, so where do you get wisdom? And he used the F word. He said, by making a lot of fucking mistakes.
Right.
And so he was saying that, you know, it's the people again going through the hardship in their mind that they're making themselves less of something, that they're not worthy, that they're not enough, that they're not smart enough, they're not good looking enough, that, you know, what are they going to say? And I've even heard this, why I brought that up with you, Craig, about your Jewish heritage. It's like, man, there's actually people out there that would go, the thought of tarnishing my name is like, you know, when you could talk to other groups and going, yeah, that was done 4 generations before me.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, like we have a lot of
Wow.
bearing on legacy and stuff for a lot of weird and interesting reasons that are just old fashioned. You know, like I think that there's a lot of like I don't want to dishonor my family name or things like that that kind of can hold you from being yourself if you think that way.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, and you'll have people in your family or friends or anyone that's like naysayers and what you think is best for you, and you always got to make that decision because it always goes back to like you get to decide what you do with your own life, and you'll always be unhappy until you make that decision for yourself. Um, you know, I am a huge advocate, you guys, for using the future to become excited and using the past to grow from wisdom, and not using the past to beat yourself up. Like use it for wisdom. The people that are in your life will love if you do that instead of beat yourself up for it, because you can learn on the
Right.
things that you did wrong. And
Yeah.
then the future, you can use it for fear, you can use it for anxiety, or you can use it for excitement. And I try my best, even though I am an anxious person, to use the future for that reason, to
Right.
go, these are the things I want to do with my life. This is where I feel like I'm going. I'm excited about that. Visualize it. I become a lot more open to that as a possibility. Like, not that the future will manifest it for me, but that if my mind, like a sword, if I direct it in the right direction, then it will cut through all those things that are in my way. And I'm becoming way more of an advocate for that way of thinking for the future. Um, and it'll be interesting to see because lately I've been kind of in a really high spot, a good spot about those things. So I haven't had to deal with, I wouldn't say any hardship as of lately. So it'll be interesting to see how I use that mental place to deal with hardships moving forward. And
Right.
that goes back to my own understanding of like being an observer of myself and of others. Like me even saying that, and I was talking about patting yourself on the back. I pat myself on the back a lot for that thought. That I now, when I think about those things, I think of them in an observer way for myself. I'm like, how would I be in this situation with where I've grown to now? How will I deal with these situations in the future? Thankfully, because of the wisdom that I've had in the past. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely. It just looks like Melody just announced that she's been in Inner Circle for 2 months. People don't know that they can do that, but it is really awesome. Thank you so much, Melody, for being an
Thank you,
Inner
Yay,
Circle
Melody.
member.
Melody.
Love and appreciate you. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Well, I was gonna throw it to you guys with this because I think we should just all end this by answering the question kind of the way I kind of just did right there, which is the question of the episode, how to deal with hardship. I want to
Right.
go through each one of you guys and go, with all the wisdom that you've gotten, how now in life do you deal with the hardships that come to you? And I know, Dad, obviously you just went through a hardship and are going through a hardship. So would you want to speak on it first?
Yeah, yeah. Me, when I look at the person that was approaching the hardship that I was going through, the first thing that we got to do, in my opinion, is, again, you just don't know how much of a miracle you are. You really, 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 everyone that watches this live or recorded, I mean, you're not even in the ballpark of what your potential is in handling any situation, hardship, or problem. You're not. It's just that, if your first thought was, when in doubt, reach out. I've never said that ever in my life. When
It
in
should be on
doubt,
a t-shirt. Maybe that's
yeah. When in doubt, reach out. It's because what we do is we're taught through all the others, let's call it bullshit. We're taught through the programming that this is something that we need to resolve within ourselves. And it's like that kid that, now has broken the record, that's autistic, for the Rubik's Cube. And to think that their parents are smart enough to find something that would entertain that kid. And then after they found it, they introduced him to a kid that showed him how to do it. Isn't that interesting? So, everyone doesn't know how to deal with autism because it's different for every child, just like the uniqueness and everything. So
right.
it's your goal to talk to other people to find out what worked for them. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm going to try this. And so don't go so far within, disbelieve all this programming, that by you reaching out to somebody else, asking for help, is where we address this first thing. Matt, you, first of all, I don't deserve your time. So can I get a minute of your time? So there, I don't feel enough. I don't feel deserving. And I think I'm wasting Matt's time. And then as soon as I get Matt on the phone or on Zoom, my very first thing is, listen, I know this is a stupid question, and I'm sorry for bothering you. When you think about all the bullshit programming that we're bringing to any solution, I've realized at 61 years of age that my biggest hardships was my inability to get myself out of the fucking way.
No, I'm with you. Same.
The hardship was me not willing to admit, to ego or whatever, that I didn't have a clue what the hell was going on, and that I had already made mistakes and decisions that got me here once again. And I just had to figure out and solve this on my own. And it's this, I'm not saying that everybody that watches this live or recorded does that. I just know that I've done it too much. And so it's funny when you listen to people outside of you, because as soon as I hurt my shoulder blade and broke my shoulder blade, there's, 8 people that reached out to me right away and said, get your ass in the car and get to an emergency room. Stop effing around. Well, that should have been the first thing I did. No, well, maybe I'm not hurt that bad. I know that I know I'm crying, and I know that I'm upset, and I feel like I hurt, and I feel sort of stupid and embarrassed. But I need to get on a video. I need to do a video. I got a video coming up. It's like, we're so stupid. And if you don't like using the word stupid, use another word. But it's like, you got to have people around you that are going like, listen, like, I had a couple of people that reached out to me that have worked in the medical field. And they're like, listen, please slow your ass down, go get some help. Nah, I'm okay.
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean that even if you didn't break it, right? And you're thinking in your own head like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go. Like, I don't need to go. Maybe it's not that bad." I'm still like a huge advocate. I've done this many times for myself for the peace of mind of knowing that I'm okay.
Yeah.
See,
Like
we'll do
it
that for other
helps.
people.
Oh
We'll
Right.
do
yeah, the
that for
moment,
other people. So
100%.
so Matt and Kyle both have done it. All my sons have done it. Dad, listen, I got this problem. Listen, go take a shower, do whatever. Let's
Yep.
go. And it's like, I'm not a freaking doctor. You know what I
Right.
mean? But having me tell my sons it's nothing, that doesn't help them with their peace of mind. They can love and respect me.
Yeah, it helps until you realize that you're not a doctor and then you're like, "Oh shit, like actually maybe I should go to the doctor."
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say. I would
Mhm.
say that there's still people that watch this video live and recorded, and they're dealing with one or more hardships right now. And I
Right.
would just ask yourself, you know, you wouldn't put on you wouldn't put on this planet or became aware of the inner circle for you to burden that on yourself. I know we charge a lot to be involved with the inner circle. And so, your money and your super chats gives you the privilege to reach out to one or more of us and just say, how would you deal with this situation without being judged or told that you're stupid or, hey, you know how many times I've told you this? So, good coaches that love and really love you and really want to take care of you. I had little words that I could say to Melody, that immediately all I would just start doing is just making a beeping noise. And for people that know Melody's, Melody would call me up, you got a minute? Yeah. And she says, well, I have this situation going on. And I would go beep, beep. And she's like, she would cuss me out. And then she would swear at me for a little bit. And then she would go,
Been
that
there, Melody. No.
that's exactly what that was exactly what I was doing. So people that that love you and trust you, but that was after a number of times helping you
Mhm.
unconditionally, that allows you to have that kind of trust and stuff with people. So, Craig,
You both have really said, I mean, said a lot
That's why
of
we
how
leave you for last. So,
it's I just look at it as being patient, understanding and knowing yourself. And the other thing I was going to say, here's a great quote, and I'm going to combine it with another one. Jordan Peterson said, "Experience is the best teacher, and the worst experiences teach the best lessons."
please,
And
please say that again.
okay, experience is the best teacher, and the worst experiences teach the best lessons.
Ah,
And that is the way to get through hardships. Um, Sometimes it's saying something, sometimes it's keeping your mouth shut, sometimes it's doing something, sometimes it's not. And what you were just saying about the experience, about doing things over and over and over again, and then just realizing maybe this is not the way,
right.
or maybe this is the way. Maybe I need to step away from what I'm doing so that I don't keep falling asleep on the nail and crying all the time, like the dog. Um, but it's up to each one of us to understand how we feel, how we deal with it, and then share it, not share it, find a way to maybe talk about it so that it doesn't bottle up inside and explode like the experiences that we've had, and realize, and I know this is altruistic when I say it, and realize that there is, if you step away from it or if you let it go, that whatever happens, happens, and move with it. Be the river, be the water, flow around it, flow through it. But the minute you start swimming against it, it's hard, hard, hard.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of being able to recognize that hardship and say, okay, I experienced it. I'm sorry, especially if it affected other people, or even saying, I'm sorry to yourself.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong. And God, I've had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry to yourself. Say it. And
I
then,
love you. I'm sorry.
yes, look at
I'm
yourself in the
sorry. I
mirror.
love you. And
Well, ho'opono, right?
yep.
I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Yep.
Those 4 steps for ho'opono. And if you think about it, and honestly, there have been times where I have actually said that to myself after I've worked myself into a frenzy. My shoulders are so tight, they're crawling up the side of my head. And then when I start saying that over and over again, or start thinking, okay, it's not me, it's not up to me, it's up to thee. Giving it away. When I was, Robert, if you remember the time I was in the hospital with pancreatitis,
Right.
I mean, I was so tensed up, so
Oh,
hard on myself. And it wasn't until I finally said, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. And I will deal with it regardless of what the situation is. And all of a sudden, my body just went, thank you for letting me relax a little bit, accepting it.
You
And
believed in it again.
yes,
You know what I
and
mean? That everything was going to happen the way it's supposed to.
right. And then accept it and move on. Yes, that's being altruistic, but honestly, for me, learning to do that, learning to accept that has probably been one of the best things that I've been able to do in my recent years of experience.
what
No,
a
I
go
a lot
ahead.
of wisdom there. I agree with you, Craig. And that's something I'm learning myself. And it over the last couple of years, it's really changed my life in so many ways. I found um Marcus Aurelius's teachings and meditations. I found Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And going through those books made me realize that life is all a mind game more than anything. And that that's the one thing that you do have control over is your own mind. And that whether you're going through the hardest shit you could imagine, losing children, anything like that, which Marcus Aurelius and Viktor Frankl had to deal with, you can persevere, you can survive, and you can come out on the other end of it with growth, even if it's the most hardest thing you can imagine. And another thing about those teachings is that if they can do it, I feel like I can do it. It goes back to what my
Right.
dad always says, is that it's if you really look at other people and you confide in them and you see everybody as they are, you can really realize that we're all, although unique, very human. And that anytime you surround yourself with people that tell you to not be human, to not deal with hardship in the right way, to not deal with your own mental stuff, that's a sign that you need to find a new group of people. And I hope that we can be that for you guys here,
Yes.
Yeah.
as Craig and my dad have been for me. And so I just love and appreciate you guys so much. I feel like this was such a great podcast, and honestly, like a very humbling one too, to hear your guys' perspectives and even see what everyone's sharing in chat, which I love. Like
Yeah, me
really
too.
building an environment where you guys feel comfortable talking about what you've been through too, and the hardships that you've been through and how you've gotten over them or are currently working on going through them. Thank you guys so much for trusting
Mhm.
us with that.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
yeah, so that's all I really have to say. I love and appreciate both of you guys too.
I
I'll leave it
love
to
you
you guys
guys.
to share anything else you got left and then close it out. So
No, Craig, being the awesome visionary and MC he was, he did one of those bow tyings on this package, and I was like, I'm done. I'm
Oh
thank you
gosh.
guys so much.
Bless you, Robert. Bless you, Matt. Thank you so much. And bless you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. You can follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. And you can also follow Robert on YouTube at roberthollis.com/YouTube. On Discord at roberthollis.com/Discord, on Instagram at instagram.com/official Robert Hollis, on TikTok at tiktok.com/@real Robert Hollis. And please don't forget to like and share this video on YouTube and share it with others. It's going to help us grow our community, spread the word, and reach out to those with ears to hear. Robert's normal schedule is Sunday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, with going live every day, a nice thought that he shares with everybody. Then there's Ask Me Anything on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Pacific. And of course, every Wednesday right here, How Do You Know That podcast at 1 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to get a breakthrough session, which happens every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, you got to join the inner circle. And that's at roberthollis.com/join. Please become a part of our group. We love you. We appreciate you. And I guess, Robert, you're telling me there's a new website to do, roberthollis.com/follow.
No, it was just an idea that Matt had.
No, it was funny. It wasn't an idea I had. Last time we did this podcast, my dad reached out to me and was like, we should just make a page with all the links that Craig can just say, and then he doesn't have to say all the links. And then I've been editing shorts for the channel.
Yeah.
And I completely spaced out and forgot to make that for you. So then as you're reading all that stuff,
as you were going through it, Dad looked at me and went, "Here we are again." Yeah.
Right, my goodness. Okay.
We'll get that ready for next time.
We'll definitely have that. Got to give it out to Melody Ryba. Thank you so much for the super chat. So much wisdom shared here today. Thank you, Robert, Matthew, and Craig. Love you. And to Rebecca David, thank you so much. For those of you watching on YouTube, if you'd like to do a super chat, and all the donations to the super chat do go to organizations that Robert supports. Click on that $ box below the chat and make your donation, and it will go to charities to help kids, foster and orphaned alike. And we appreciate your support on those. And you also got to say thank you and a shout out, Matthew. You're our executive producer here. Bless you, man. Thank you to Robert, of course, and thank you again for joining us today here on How Do You Know That? This is Craig Jackman. Please be good to yourself. Be cash.
Thank you, guys.